Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 5 of English 1C. We are now at the halfway point, a little bit beyond the halfway point. Wanted to talk to you guys a bit about where the rest of the class is headed. Talk a lot about two texts in particular this week that I think I do need to explain to you. And just kind of give you a general understanding of the focus on feminism, which will kind of take us through the next 2 weeks. So in the first 2 weeks, we focused primarily on Black art. In the weeks 3 and 4, we focus on Marxism and income inequality in literature. Right now, we are moving into feminism. Now, feminism is kind of a word that we hear all around, but we don't always. Maybe perhaps we're not defining it in a way that is productive for us. So what I have here is I have a feminist criticism presentation by the Purdue Owl that is going to be extremely helpful in helping you understand what feminism is. Then we have The Laugh of the Medusa, which is one of the most important essays ever written on feminism, and of which you will be spending some time on. There are several texts this week. We have Medea by Euripides, which is a play. You'll read the first half of it. You have a couple extremely short stories. Both of these take less than 15 minutes to read. 2 poems. And then the beginning of a novel. The novel we will be reading over the course of the next 4 weeks. It is going to take up some of our time in the entire second half of the class. And then you do have, kind of your standard writing assignment this week, a week 5 quiz, and you do have a discussion board, which isn't on here yet, but will be by the time Monday starts. Now, what I wanted to do was kind of talk to you a little bit about feminism, and specifically this piece, The Laugh of the Medusa, which is going to be difficult. Now, if you go to the 1C PowerPoint this week, you have the itinerary as you always do. For The Laugh of the Medusa, you're only reading pages 1 through 12 this week. That is it. Okay? In terms of Medea, the play that you're going to read, you're only reading pages 1 through 19. And then the novel, The Road, which you're going to start, you're reading pages 1 through 54 this week if you're using a hard copy, the book. And then if you're not, you're using a PDF, it's the first 16 pages. Obviously, in a PDF, you can put more words on the page. And so essentially what we have here is we do have quite a bit of reading. It's not as much as you would think because Medea is a play, which means there's not nearly as many words on a page. And The Road is written in a way that doesn't, it's not kind of one of these long sprawling novels. It does a lot of work in very few words. As you'll see, when you open it up, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, there's just not that many words on each page. So don't let these page numbers, scare you in terms of how much work there is. That being said, there is more work than normal this week in terms of the time reading. We're bringing in a novel for the first time, so it would be silly to say, hey, we're reading less. We are reading a little bit more. It is going to take a little bit more time. So I'm going to throw out an announcement this week that basically says, hey, get started early this week because, we're essentially in the middle of a marathon right now in an 8-week class. This is like mile 15 or 16 in a marathon. So it's one of the tougher parts of the class in terms of the endurance and the work going in. But as long as you're not waiting until the last minute, you're not waiting until, Saturday night or Sunday morning to get started, it should be fine and it should be interesting to you because these are some powerful texts. Now, going through the PowerPoint, you kind of have a note about the novel in which I basically say, hey, you could use a PDF. I found the PDF right now. I have never been able to find the PDF. I checked for it before the class began and it wasn't there, and now all of a sudden there's a PDF there. So if you purchase the book, which is about $10, that's awesome. It's a great novel. It's a powerful novel, but you can use the PDF. It's not as enjoyable to read. It's not as, the process might not be as entertaining reading from this long PDF, but, if you want to save the $10, then that's beneficial. Now, jumping into the star of the show for this screencast, we have Laugh of the Medusa, okay? This is a post-structuralist French essay about feminism, which you're like, what the hell is that? That seems very complex. It's scary. It's overwhelming. And it is a difficult text. Now, that being said, I asked you to read the first 12 pages. And if you read the first 12 pages, you're going to have a better understanding of feminism. The writing assignment that you're going to be doing this week is going to be easier. Everything will just be a little bit smoother. That being said, you're not going to understand it all perfectly. It is something that's usually not read by, freshman undergraduates. It's a tough piece. This is obviously English 1C. You guys have been through academic literature. You've looked at academic sources. This is an academic source. You should be able to at least approach it, even though it is going to be difficult to grasp. Now, in my notes to you, I put that this is probably the most famous essay ever written on feminism. And it is difficult. Once again, don't try to understand it perfectly. That being said, I want to talk a little bit before I show this essay to you about what the patriarchy is. So this term is probably something you've heard in college classes before. It is essentially the idea that we are in a male ran system of government and society, meaning men often run things, and that this has been the case historically, and that there has been a need for women to gain more power in society and equality in society. There's still a lot of data out there that says that we're getting there, that there's progress being made, but that we're not there yet. And that's not really something we need to kind of research in this class. That's something more for English 1B and 1A, but essentially in 1C, we want to look at how that's present in literature. Now, I'm going to go ahead and flip to the Laugh of the Medusa piece. Actually, let me go in here. Here we go. So it looks like this in my Mendeley. I have some sections kind of highlighted. I want to spend about 3 or 4 minutes just going over these sections with you. If you do not need the scaffolding, if you do not need the notes, you can skip ahead in the screencast, but I think that it's extremely helpful for me to talk about this. Now, once again, this is the Laugh of the Medusa by Sacco. What she argues in this piece is basically that writing is a way for women to demonstrate power. It's a way for women to speak their truths. It's a way for them to dismantle oppression and the ways in which women have been controlled or felt powerless over the course of, the 21st century. This was published, I believe, in 1976. It's kind of part of the second wave feminism movement, but it's still a powerful piece, still important. She says in the second paragraph that the future must no longer be determined by the past, essentially arguing that for women, this current, the current movement in which women are writing and getting published more often, is a point in time where they must forget the past because the past has no bearing on the future. It's this focus on the need to rise up in society. She says at the bottom of this page that she speaks of women in their inevitable struggle against conventional man. So this isn't women saying all men are evil or all men are bad. It's her way of saying, like, writing is an opportunity for women to speak about struggles against these kind of traditional standards of men, traditional norms in terms of the relationship between men and women. Oftentimes, men have a hard time with feminism. They think it means something entirely different than what it actually means. Feminism is the desire from women to be equal in society, to be equal in their marriages with men, to be equal in their relationships, even platonic relationships with men. That is what feminism is. It's this idea that society does not always treat women equally. I mean, and it's seen in everything from the way our economic sector is set up to the fact that women, something like women razors are oftentimes 30% more expensive than men razors. Women's clothing is more expensive. And so there's this idea that women are often exploited in terms of capitalism, economics. Men are more likely to get promoted. Why is that the case? Women are more likely to experience domestic violence than men. Why is that the case? That is what feminism seeks to answer and what feminism seeks to alleviate and fix. Okay? So she's talking about inevitable struggles, economic struggles, domestic struggles, educational struggles, all kinds of different things. Now, if we keep going, let's see, where do I want to hit next? It's just some powerful points right here about her experiences with the world as a woman. At the beginning or at the end of this page, she says that writing was once seen as too high, too great for you. She means women there. It's reserved for great men. If you look at the historical canon, it's mostly full of old white men. She's arguing here that, hey, this is not right. Women have written in secret, which was the case 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Women could not even get novels published a couple centuries ago. And this is her saying, like, hey, we need to take this and fix this. She talks about not having equality in the editing room and the publishing houses. Those are some of her main ideas. Now this is one of the most important quotes here. She says, men have created a great crime against women, which is that they have led men to hate women. They have led women to be their own enemies. They have forced women to not see the strength in themselves. And this is partially because oftentimes in our society or historically, there's been this view that men, they're the breadwinners. Men are the ones that keep the bills and focus on keeping control of the money. Men are the ones that have higher education levels. Men run the home. Men run the office. And she's saying this is not right. It is important that we take over control of our bodies, that we take control of our lives. Once again, that we have equality, that we don't let men kind of dictate what women do, which it's ironic that we have me, a man, explaining that to you, but nonetheless, that is the case. She says it's time to liberate the new women from the old, which essentially is arguing that before this time period, women, they worked in the home. They they did not have control over their bodies. Men were encouraged to date and sleep around. Women are told not to do that. This kind of culture of slut shaming, which she talks about in the second half of this piece. She focuses more on sexuality in the second half. What else do I want to hit? We don't really need to hit that too much. Right here, she says an act that will be marked by women seizing the occasion to speak about her suppression. So once again, you have this idea of writing being a way of dismantling patriarchy, a way of being able to present women's stories, the good, the powerful women that exist in our world, but also the powerless women and the ways in which some women are stuck in marriages or stuck in jobs they don't like, stuck in a life that they don't like. That is what she's arguing here. All right, so I've already spoken on this for about 6 minutes. I don't want to take too much of your time and attention. Feel free to read this. It is important. You are using it in a writing assignment. If you get stuck or you need help with, there's a quote you find interesting and you want me to explain it, just message me and I can do that for you. Okay. So I have some of the main ideas listed here for you. That will also help. I want to talk a little bit about the Purdue OWL document. I've copy and pasted their questions in here. These are not an assignment. They are just there to help you think about each of the texts this week. Okay. So I have some information on each of the texts. And these are questions that will help you understand this. So as you're reading A Rose for Emily, for instance, maybe ask yourself, okay, how are the male and female roles defined in the story? And in doing that, you're engaging in feminism. Archetypal criticism, we already talked about last week. There's some stuff in there for you. Now, let's see. The novel's great. It is Cormac McCarthy's The Road. You will love it, I hope. It is a very easy read. It is a quick read, even though it's a couple hundred pages. Like I said, open the novel up and you'll see there are not a lot of words on each page. There is an assignment listed in the module for you. I have a kind of a writing overview that I created for what The Road is about. Where I really want to get us to, though, is talking about the play, which is Medea. You are going to read the first 19 pages of this play today, and I wanted to kind of explain how the play works. It is a Greek tragedy. It is a play about a woman who her husband basically leaves her for another woman, and it's